Welcome back. In the first two videos, I went over what I think is the controversy of how I teach versus how other people teach or how other people play. And basically it is that if people are swinging out to the side with this paddle in a horizontal orientation, I feel like it's less consistent, less controllable than if we're swinging with the ball in close down at our knee and with this paddle in a vertical orientation. I went through over all those reasons. If you haven't watched those yet, please do so. Links are in the description box below. In this video and the remaining videos then, I will talk primarily about this, how to swing with this paddle in the vertical orientation, and how to control the ball, how to hit the ball consistently well with this ball in close down by our knee and with this paddle in a more vertical orientation. Up front, I want to talk about ground strokes or drives. And I think there's some tendency when people talk about drives in pickleball that it's a banger, that somebody's hitting 100% of their power. They're up at the top of their power range when they're hitting drives. And that's simply not true. So I think of drives as all these variations on how hard I can hit this ball. So if I'm prepped, I can swing really hard, maybe at 100%, or I can swing down at 80% or 75 or 60 or down to 50%. So try not, as I go through how to hit these balls, think that this only applies to me hitting at maximum power. In pickleball, I think there's this term bangers, which I hate, which I've talked about before, because I think bangers are different than people who can drive the ball well, ex-tennis players. And as ex-tennis players, if you watch them play, they will put varying amounts of speed on their balls as they drive them. So we have those two main categories of I'm driving a ball or I'm trying to drop it and finesse it over the net into the kitchen, and we have lobs and other shots. As I talk about this, don't think that this only applies to hitting kind of at max power or maybe even 80% to 100%. This really applies to any type of drive. I'm going to talk about my body orientation as I hit these drives. And again, I'm back on the baseline or a no man's land when I'm hitting these drives. So a couple of big options. One is, the first one I'll talk about is when I'm square to the net. So I'm facing the net, so my feet, knees, my hips, my shoulders are all kind of facing this net. And as this ball comes in, then I would hit this ball and go on, right? The one caveat or one thing to think about here is I can't put much body mass. I can't rotate my shoulders and my core into this shot very well. So I'm a little bit limited on how hard I can hit this ball, not meaning I have to always hit it at 100%. So I could be square to the net as this ball comes in and I hit this ball both on the forehand and the backhand side. The alternative to that is I've dropped one side of my body back. So now I'm sideways to the net as this ball comes in and I want to drive this ball. So now I have more room to swing, more room to rotate my shoulders and get more body mass into the shot, which allows me to add more power if I want. I don't have to. I could still do this and be nice and controlled and hit at 50% power, some nice controlled shot, which isn't as hard as my 100% shot. And I could do this on both sides. So on my backhand sides, I'm a righty. Ball comes in, I drop this non-paddle side of my body back, and now it gives me room to rotate my shoulders, and if I want to drive that ball harder, then I can. And there are all these angle variations in between those two. So I could be here, or I could be back at this 45-degree angle, or 33, or more than a 45-degree angle, so I don't have to be completely one or the other. I can pick for me which one works best, and I can do that based on maybe how hard I want to hit this ball or not. I need to have a standard position when I'm hitting these drives. What then should determine my orientation to the net? Should I be square to the net or should I be sideways to the net? And to me, it depends on your eye dominance. I made a video on eye dominance, how to tell whether you're left eye or right eye dominant. I'll put a link to that video in the description box below. But in essence, your eyes don't focus on the ball and track the ball 50-50. One is way more dominant. You're using one more than the other one. And the other one just kind of helps out. And you need to know which is which, because that should impact how you're standing, what your orientation is as you're hitting these forehands and backhands. And it varies how it impacts our stance on the forehand side and the backhand side. So you need to know which of your eyes is dominant. Go watch that video, come back and finish watching this video. For me, I'm right-handed and I'm right eye dominant. And so what does that mean? If I were to drop this side of my body back so I could rotate more into the shot, into my drives and get more power on those drives, then what happens is as I drop this paddle side of my body back, my right eye loses track of where this ball is. It doesn't mean it can't see it at all, it just is not dominant anymore. I'm depending more on my left eye, my lesser dominant eye, to track this incoming ball. Not good. I want my dominant eye to always be able to see this ball wherever it is on the court as it's coming toward me. So for me, as a righty and a right eye dominant player, my orientation to the net when I'm hitting these forehand drives, these forehand ground strokes, tends to be more squared to the net. So as I'm in this position then I can see this ball coming in with my right eye regardless of where it's coming from across that court. And I want my dominant eye to always be able to see this ball as it's coming in. Now the downside may be that I can't generate as much power in here on my stance here because I'm square to the net. So a lot of my body rotation ability to rotate my shoulders into the shot have gone away. It's okay for me because nobody's really ever accused me of not having enough power when I hit a drive. But for those of you that may have a little bit of trouble generating some power, you still want to be able to track this ball and not lose it with your dominant eye. So let's say you're a petite person for whatever reason, or you just don't have much strength or muscle mass. You still want to be oriented toward this net with your hips and your feet and your shoulders and be here and hit those drives because you'll be able to track that ball with your dominant eye and not lose it. And that's a very important thing. Now, as I talked earlier about, there are degrees between here and here. It could be that you're able to drop this side of your paddle side of your body back on this 33-degree angle or 45 and still have some room to rotate in, or as you're moving forward, you step forward here. And so now there's still a little bit more rotation. So it doesn't always have to be completely square to the net, but in general, it would be the preferred way to approach this ball, even if I'm coming in on a shorter ball and I have this foot back and I have a little bit more rotation. I'm still in general square to this net and oriented that way when I hit my forehand ground strokes. What does that mean on my backhand side? So as a right-handed person with a right eye, dominant right eye, if I drop this side of my foot back, this side of my body back, it opens this up and allows me to swing and get more power. Now, since I'm right eye dominant, I can do this on this side because as I drop this non-paddle side of my body back, I still don't lose track of this ball with my dominant eye. This side of my body goes back, I can still see this ball wherever it's coming from with my dominant eye. Not so much my less dominant eye, but not as big of a problem as it would be on my forehand side. So now I have the ability to drop this side of my body back, get some more shoulder rotation into this, more body mass into the shot, and hit it harder if I want to. I also have the ability to not drop back quite as far. So as I talked about, maybe on this 45-degree angle, maybe that's all I have time to do, or maybe for the direction I want to go, that orients my body in a better way to get the ball to go cross court for me, maybe back on the 45-degree angle, so I don't have to go all the way back on the backhand side. And similarly then, I can stay square to the net. So just because I'm right eye dominant doesn't mean I have to drop my body back. Maybe I don't need that extra rotation, or I'm trying to hit a lighter, more finesse shot for whatever reason, or they powered a ball down at my backhand side foot and I don't have time to move and I don't want to move, and I simply want to be here trying to dig that ball off the court. If I'm down here, now my dominant eye can still see this ball coming in. On my backhand side, then I have all these options of how I can hit this ball, and I want to maybe practice these more. Now, if you're left eye dominant, right-handed left eye dominant, then it kind of says you want to be square to the net on a lot of these backhands. The problem with that is that now I've taken away a lot of my ability to rotate into the shot, and I've gotten rid of a lot of my power, potentially. It doesn't mean we have to be completely square to this net. So let's say I want to hit this ball a little bit harder, and I'm a righty, but I'm left eye dominant, so I want my left dominant eye to see this ball the whole time. I could drop this side of my body back on a 45-degree angle. It doesn't have to be all the way back. And now I've opened up a little bit of room, more room than here, to swing at this ball and get some rotation into it and hit that ball harder if I want to. So for me as a righty, right-eye dominant person, I have more options on the backhand side. I feel like I'm more limited on the forehand side, but my forehand's more powerful than my backhand side, so it kind of evens out a little bit. So keep that in mind. Again, if you don't know which eye of yours is dominant, go watch that video. Links in the description box below. Figure that out and then start looking at how you normally hit a forehand and a backhand. And you might be surprised to find out that you're already kind of doing some of this without even knowing it because it feels natural to you. I'm watching some people play here at the facility, and if I watch them long enough, I can start to figure out if they're right eye dominant or left eye dominant based off of how they hit their forehands and how they hit their backhands. Not always true, but people tend to migrate to the easier thing to do, and they tend to migrate toward, I want my dominant eye to track that ball the whole time. You need to know which eye of yours is dominant, and then figure out, can I orient my body better on the forehand and or on the backhand side?